Chapter 7. What is this place? Avery wondered as she stepped cautiously along the steel-paneled flooring. The din of high-pressured steam and pistons, along with the opening and closing of valves, reverberated around the expansive tiered enclosure. What am I doing here? Perplexed as to how she arrived in such a place, Avery continued along the rusty walkway, struggling to see in the dim light. Then, without warning, she felt the impact of her left shoulder making forceful contact with the wall. It was as if the floor had started to move, causing her to lose her balance. It wasn't an earthquake. She'd experienced one of those before. Then another shift in the floor's orientation took place. Am I on a boat or something? Instinctively reaching for the railing to her right, she noticed something peculiar on the tier just below her. An open brown duffel bag sat next to an orange calico blanket that had been loosely spread out on the floor. She also noticed what looked like a pair of green exercise pants that had been folded to serve as a pillow. Is someone sleeping in here? Hello? Avery called out, keeping her hands fixed tightly to the railing, but her voice was immediately swallowed by the symphony of the mechanical activity in the room. Carefully making her way down a short set of nearby stairs, she inched toward the duffel bag and blanket, pausing again to keep her balance as the entire room teetered. Now crouching over the bag, she quickly determined the items belonged to a young woman. What in the world is she doing here? Taking another look around, Avery noticed a faint strand of natural light across the room and up some stairs. An exit. Becoming slightly more adept at keeping her footing in her awkward environment, she maneuvered along the narrow path and climbed the stairs. Taking a moment to examine the bulky door latch, she got it to open by thrusting upward and then across. Avery's long black hair was immediately blown back by a gust of icy wind, which caught her off guard and ripped the breath from her lungs. Gasping and shoving the door closed to protect herself from the bitter cold, Avery scurried back down the stairs to retrieve the calico blanket. Imbued with a subliminal sense of purpose and with the blanket wrapped about her, Avery returned to the steel exit door and stepped into the Arctic night. Avery's jaw dropped as she surveyed her surroundings. She was indeed on a boat, an enormous cargo ship. There were hundreds of steel containers, the size of rail cars, stacked all over the place. But how did I get here? Numbing winds swirled around her from every direction. Without having to think, she knew she was here for a reason. Go left, came the internal prompting. Now right. As if being steered by someone else, Avery obeyed every command. Head up those stairs. The stinging she'd felt in her unprotected feet had now begun to subside as she continued to race along the deck of the freightliner. Stop! To Avery's left was another door, similar to the one she'd encountered before. She immediately opened it and stepped into the darkness. Grateful to find a light switch on the wall to the right of the entrance, Avery flipped it on and looked around. She seemed to be in some crude type of office. There was a lengthy hallway directly ahead of her, which she instinctively started down. Then she heard it. Pausing in her tracks, Avery strained to discern the noise, past the howling of the wind and the creaking of the massive vessel. There it is again. Someone was crying. Following the noise a little further down the hall, Avery happened upon the source of the crying. A door on the left was slightly ajar, and she slipped cautiously inside, discovering she was now in a bathroom. "Ma'am," Avery said as she walked slowly toward the prostrate figure. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" Sobbing was the only reply. "Ma'am, I'm sorry to intrude. It's just that I heard you crying, and I thought I might be able to help." Still no verbal response. However, the 20-something turned and pushed herself up from the floor and slowly rose to her feet. Pulling her long jet black hair behind her shoulders, she approached a nearby mirror and hesitantly took a kitchen knife that had been laying across the rim of the steel sink. "Ma'am," Avery's voice quivered as she spoke, "what are you doing with that knife?" Continuing to cry, the woman acted as if she had no idea Avery was even in the room. Moving in closer, the mysterious woman examined the ghostly figure staring back at her through the mirror. She then placed a hand on her belly and turned 90 degrees to her right, briefly observing herself from the side. "Oh my goodness," Avery thought. "She's pregnant, and she's afraid." As Avery took in the desperate expression on the terrified woman's face, she could feel her pain, her fear of the unknown, her yearning for a respite from her deep personal hell. "I know how you feel," Avery thought. "I know too well." With closed eyes and clenched teeth, the quivering woman then raised the knife and delicately placed the tip just under her sternum. "Don't do it," Avery yearned. "Please don't do this." "It's okay," Avery spoke now through tears of her own. "Everything is going to be all right." Although she'd not yet acknowledged Avery's presence in the room, the woman now opened her bloodshot eyes and dropped the serrated knife to the ground. Her sobs subsided, and the expression on her face shifted from terror to one of surprise and curiosity. "Can she see me?" Avery wondered. Continuing to stare right through Avery, the woman began to step lightly in her direction. The beginnings of a smile now began to emerge on her lips, and she extended her right hand. Avery reciprocated the gesture, and at the moment when their hands would have touched, Avery was shocked to see that their fingers actually seemed to disappear into each other. Both women paused, each closing their eyes, with warm smiles emanating from their faces. Avery had no idea why, but she felt a remarkable connection with this enigmatic stranger. With great tears of joy now rolling down their faces, the two women retracted their hands at the same time. Returning now to the mirror, the woman pressed her finger to the glass and began to write something in the condensation. Avery gasped as she watched the letters materialize on the mirror. Avery. Avery's head spun as she tried to process everything she had just witnessed. With a chill jolting down her spine, she began to understand. Glancing down at the name tattooed on her right forearm, Avery knew. But it wasn't possible, was it? No. How could this possibly be real? And yet she was here. There was no denying it. "You're Kendra." "Mom?" Avery called. Kendra then instantly turned and looked Avery directly in the eye. Her smile was one of indescribable joy. Avery rushed toward her, wanting desperately to embrace her courageous biological mother. But as she did so, the scene began to recede before her eyes. It was as if two intersecting dimensions were being rapidly torn apart. Maintaining eye contact with Kendra for as long as she could, Avery screamed out to her as she was pulled upward and away from the ship. "Mom, no! Please come back! Mom, please!" Within a brief moment, Kendra and the Freightliner were swallowed up in the dark distance of the night. Out of sight, out of reach. But Avery knew, yes, everything had changed. Jarred out of sleep at the sound of her daughter's hysterical screaming, Allison grabbed the wooden baseball bat that lay at her bedside and dashed across the hall. "What's wrong, Aves?" Allison shrieked as she barged through the door. "Who's here? What's happening?" Not seeing the threat in Avery's room, Allison took a quick step back into the hall, scanning the area for the intruder she was intent on bashing in the face. Panicked and breathing heavily, Allison scoured the rest of their small apartment, but found nothing. "Mom!" Avery called, her face wet with tears. With bat still in hand, Allison rushed back to her daughter's room and flipped on the light. "What is it, Avery? Why are you screaming?" "Mom." "Yes, baby." Allison panted. "Were you having a nightmare or something?" "Mom, we're not going to that doctor's appointment tomorrow. We're not getting a second opinion." Relaxing from her poised attack position, Allison took a seat on the bed and laid the bat on the floor. "Oh, sweetheart. I thought someone was trying to hurt you." "We're not going to listen to them, Mom," Avery said, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I have to protect this baby." Taking a deep breath, Allison wiped a tear from Avery's cheek and smiled. "I know, sweetheart." "You do?" "I've stayed up all night thinking about it." "You have?" "Yes, and for some reason, I've been thinking of Kendra too." "Really?" Avery sobbed. "She talked about you all the time, Avery. She really did." "I've been thinking of her too." This probably sounds strange, but it was as if she had already met you. She had such a connection with you. She said you were her inspiration, that you saved her life. "Really?" "Oh, yes. She said it all the time." "She was so brave." "I've only ever known one person as brave as Kendra." "Dad?" "Oh, he was pretty brave, all right. But I was actually referring to someone else." "Who?" "You, Avery." "Oh, Mom, you don't have to say that. I'm afraid. I don't know what's going to happen." "Neither do I. But you know what?" "What?" "That's okay." "Yeah." "I'd better let you get back to sleep," Allison said, gently kissing her daughter's forehead. Retrieving the wooden bat from the floor, Allison headed for the door. Then just before exiting, she turned back. "By the way, I've never seen that orange calico blanket before. Where did you get it?"